Something important happened at Davos last week, and it wasn't just another round of speeches and photo ops. For more than a decade now, one trend has been quietly accelerating. The United States no longer believes it benefits from acting as the reliable guarantor of the global order. That means less commitment to collective security, free trade, multilateral institutions, and democracy promotion, all pillars that America's closest allies still view as essential. Donald Trump didn't start this shift, but he has accelerated it, dramatically. And at Davos, that rupture finally became explicit. The highlight of last week was a speech that changed the mood. The moment came from an unexpected source, Canada's Prime Minister, Mark Carney. On the world's biggest geopolitical stage, with heads of state, CEOs, and investors gathered in one place, Carney said something that landed like a thunderclap: the US-led global system is over, and middle powers need to hedge, coordinate, and begin building something new. The reaction was immediate. This wasn't an activist or an academic saying it. It was a G7 leader, publicly declaring that the post-war international order no longer holds. And he didn't just talk. Canada, fresh off a high-profile effort to repair ties with China, was already acting on this new reality. For many in the room, that speech, not Trump's, was the defining moment of the week. Trump did have his Davos moment, and that was the Greenland shock. All week, anticipation centered on Trump's plenary the next day. He had already raised the stakes by threatening tariffs and floating claims over Greenland, framing it as Greenland or bust for NATO. In the end, the speech itself produced little new substance. The real news came later, when Trump partially backed down via social media, reversing tariffs and walking away from Greenland claims. But the damage was already done. The episode reinforced a broader point. Trump's foreign policy is transactional, unilateral, and highly sensitive to domestic markets and political backlash. Allies took note. So who leads the free world now? Here's the uncomfortable question Davos exposed. If the US is stepping back and China is rising but not trusted, then who leads? At Davos, it briefly felt like Mark Carney had stepped into that vacuum. But that raises deeper questions. What is the free world now? Who belongs to it? And how long can it survive in a system dominated by great powers? No one has clear answers yet. But the window for smaller and mid-sized powers to shape outcomes is narrowing fast. There were three big implications for governments. 1. Power vacuums. The US is pulling back, but no one can replace it. That creates space for rogue states, non-state actors, longer, harder to resolve conflicts. Ukraine entering its 5th year of war is a preview of this new normal. 2. A shift in multilateralism. Allies aren't abandoning institutions, they're reshaping them. We are seeing faster trade deals outside US frameworks, EU-Mercosur, EU-India, more regional cooperation, quiet hedging against US unpredictability. The goal isn't to replace America, it's to reduce dependence on it. 3. China benefits, by default. China doesn't need to persuade. It just needs to wait. As the US weakens its own credibility, Beijing fills gaps in trade, diplomacy, and multilateral influence. Ironically, when Trump proposed his new Board of Peace, China declined, because staying in the UN makes Beijing more powerful, not less. So what did investors take away? Governments and capital see the same rupture, but react differently. Large investors aren't abandoning the US. They're hedging it. The trade today looks like this: long US private sector productivity, short US governance credibility. That's why you see strong US equity inflows, a weaker dollar, rising gold, Swiss franc, and alternative hedges. Over the long term, the only market large enough to absorb meaningful reallocation is China, despite its own risks. That conversation happened quietly at Davos. Americans mostly stayed on the sidelines. And why did Greenland matter more than it should have? Greenland dominated Davos, absurdly so. But the episode revealed something critical. Trump backs down when three things align. 1. Domestic political opposition. 2. Market backlash. 3. Coordinated allied resistance. Europe didn't win the confrontation, but it learned how to survive it. Still, the damage to trust was real. The US-EU relationship now looks structurally weakened, not temporarily strained. Finally, we need to explore the Board of Peace problem. Trump wanted the Board of Peace to be the headline announcement. Instead, it raised more questions than answers. No clear legal authority, unclear enforcement power, authoritarian participants, allies staying away. What could have been a diplomatic win ended up reinforcing doubts about US leadership. Final thoughts from Davos? Davos wasn't about chaos. It was about transition. The global order isn't collapsing. It's becoming more transactional, more fragmented, and less anchored to any single power. The unanswered question is which shift matters more: governments slowly building a post-American multilateral system, or global capital accelerating China's rise by hedging against US governance risk. Right now, China has momentum. But momentum isn't destiny.